It's time for this week's episode of Brandon Sports Talk, featuring in-depth interviews from those who are trending in the world of athletics. And now, here's the host of Brandon Sports Talk, Brandon Pate.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege to interview the LIU Sharks head women's rowing coach, Coach Jaclyn Smith. How are you doing today?
Great, Brandon. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Can you talk about how you knew that you wanted to get started in coaching in college rowing?
So, I attended Sacred Heart University and I went there. I was majoring in education. I started out with a master's in elementary ed and then furthered my degree by getting a second master's in school counseling. And throughout my time there, I was the assistant coach at Sacred Heart. And I kind of realized towards while I was going through that master's degree, it was a 3-year program, that, I always thought that I wanted to become a high school guidance counselor, coach a high school team. I thought that I wanted to take the perspective of coaching and being in the high school atmosphere and helping these kids get to college. But I soon realized that I could use this degree in the college field where I already was and further it. But the big thing for me was I didn't think that I could step away from the competitiveness and the amount of hours spent training.
Of course, what was it like going to Sacred Hearts and competing in rowing?
Sacred Heart was great. I had the opportunity to row there for 4 years. And upon graduation, I was asked to be the assistant coach, which was an awesome opportunity. Rowing there was phenomenal. I really developed as a rower. It helped me, make my way to the national team eventually. It also was a stepping stone to, getting my first coaching gig. And now, without that, I wouldn't be where I am today.
Of course, how is that like getting to put on that uniform for Sacred Hearts on the rowing team's program?
It was great. I'd started rowing in high school at Our Lady of Mercy. And I kind of started with rowing because I came from a very sports oriented family. And I'd played your traditional sports growing up: basketball, soccer, lacrosse, all that stuff. And when I got to high school, they offered rowing. So I figured, why not? So I kind of got my footing, learned how to row. And throughout my time at Mercy, I would say that I was pretty slow to pick up the sport. So when I finally, excuse me, took the, next step and went on to row in college, rowing at Sacred Heart really helped develop me as a rower. And it's kind of the reason, I made the national team and I'm still, now have a career in rowing.
Of course, what was that feeling like making that national team and coming from Sacred Heart to make the national team?
It was funny because I kind of really got thrown into it. I had heard about the national team and I went to this development camp where I thought, all right, I'm going to go. I'm going to see where these, older people are at. And I ended up getting an invitation to selection camp while being at development camp. And so I tried out for my first national team in 2013. I was by far the youngest in the boat. And I really didn't know what to expect. 10 years later, I was, the oldest and the, longest standing Paralympic rower on the team. So it really came full circle for me, I'd say.
What was that feeling like making the Paralympic team to go to Rio?
That was incredible. You know, Started in 2013, so the beginning of a new Olympic quadrennial. So went to South Korea, the World Championships. We got fourth. Went to Amsterdam the year after, got second, big improvement. France the following year got second. And going to Worlds is an awesome experience. You really get to see the best of the best in the rowing world. But when you hit that Paralympic year, it's a whole nother beast. all sports go there. So you get to meet athletes from different countries, but also different sports, which is awesome. But it's a lot more advertised. It's broadcasted, so a lot more people get into it, and that was a really cool, fun thing to see. Like people really who had no idea about rowing starting to educate themselves on it and watch and follow us and kind of be a part of this whole process.
What were some of the things that you did to help obviously balance between being a college coach for Sacred Hearts while also being a professional Paralympian?
So I'd say that honestly, they helped me out. So being able to be a coach and also train full time, I'd go to practice in the morning and the girls would just motivate me. They'd wake up early, they'd get on the ergs during those cold, dark hours during the winter, and they'd pull out some pretty good numbers. And I realized that me being their coach, I can't ask them to complete a workout or push their limits further if I can't do it myself. So I'd get up in the morning, watch them do it, and then my butt would be in the gym right after them.
How is that like, obviously, while being a coach at Sacred Hearts, having them see you go on to the Paralympic level and compete nationally?
I think it was a cool thing for them. I know that, if I was in their shoes, that I would find it fun to be able to talk with other rowers about, where your coach is at and, that you're getting firsthand experience of, the process, what it takes, the sacrifices you have to make. So I think that overall, it was something good for them to see and honestly kind of helped some of them realize whether they wanted to pursue the national team or not.
What were some of your accomplishments as a coach for Sacred Hearts as an assistant coach?
So the big thing was when I started coaching at Sacred Heart was originally a very small team. We focused on small boats, and you could go to races and put whatever boats that you wanted to put together. In 2015, the MAC conference became an automatic qualifier for the NCAAs. So with that, we went from being a program that could put out whatever small boats we wanted to at whatever races we went to now you have to field a first eight, a second eight, and a four. So that really catered to the bigger teams because they'd have more competition to fill less seats. For us, it was really scraping the bottom of the barrel and making sure that no one got hurt and everyone was pushing themselves and kind of everybody was going to get a seat. So the biggest thing for me was building the team. Through recruiting, I was able to bring in some really talented athletes and really build the number on our roster and the competitiveness of the program. And then from 2015, I believe we got 9th out of 10th in the conference. And by the time I left Sacred Heart, we were at 5th, I believe, in the conference.
How is that like, obviously, getting to coach at your alma mater and have, obviously, that experience of coaching at your alma mater?
It was pretty cool. Like, I was there for 10 years, 4 years rowing, 6 years coaching. So it was pretty cool to watch the program grow. It definitely, became more supported by the school. They, started throwing more resources our way. But it was really cool to see, the process of going from a really small team to really pushing and being, striving for the top of the conference.
What was that process like leaving your alma mater to take your first head coaching job and come to LIU?
So I got the, job offer from LIU, and I think that, one, I had been at Sacred Heart for 6 years and it was my alma mater. So it's all that I had known. So I was kind of ready to, one, take that next step and be a head coach, and then two, experience something different. And aside from that, with my experience on the national team, with my experience building Sacred Heart's team to having a bigger roster, being more competitive, I thought that the challenge of building a team from absolutely ground zero up was going to be a challenge that I would really enjoy. And not only would I like the challenge, but it's also something that was going to help me become a better coach and learn more. So I really like the fact that, not only was I getting the opportunity to be a head coach, but I was going to be able to build a program from the ground up and kind of build it the way that I see fit.
What was that process like as you were talking about building it from the ground up and building it as a brand new program?
So last October, I started at LIU and there was no team, no kids on the roster. no rowers, no ergs, no boats, nothing. So from October, I had to, purchase boats, purchase ergs, build a team from nothing. A lot of programs, what they normally do is they have a club team and then they make the decision to take that big leap into a Division I program. LIU didn't even have a club team. So in October, started the recruiting process to bring kids in for September of the following year. But I also was able to get a bunch of walk-ons that already attended LIU. So the cool thing about that is, I had 9 kids start up last January. They started up at the beginning of spring semester, and they had absolutely no rowing experience whatsoever. And even with having no rowing experience, these 9 kids showed up every morning, not knowing what they were going to get themselves into, being, put on the erg, which is the absolute worst part of rowing. Cold months in the morning, it's hard for somebody who even knows what rowing is all about and how to become a good rower to get themselves to do that. But these 9 kids had no experience of that, and they showed up every morning. Snowing out, they showed up. Cold out, they showed up. Dark out, they showed up. Not feeling well, they showed up. And then these 9 kids now, have competed for the first time this past fall season, and they are absolutely exceeding my expectations, and they've really taken on the rowers persona. They're team oriented, they're very inclusive, they're cheering each other on, they're self-motivated, they're determined, they're really pushing the limits, not only just on the water but also in the classroom, which is awesome to see. So those 9 walk-ons, and then we had a bunch of recruits come in the fall. So we're heading places, and I couldn't do it without the support and the backing of the administration, who has been absolutely phenomenal since I've started.
How has that been like, obviously being inaugural coach and being the first ever coach to run the program?
It's both exciting and scary at the same time. Exciting in the sense that, I'm building this program the way that I see fit, with the support of the administration, but also scary in the fact that, I don't know what tomorrow brings. There's ways that I see fit and a direction that I want to take, but you never know when, obstacles are thrown your way. So you have to be ready to be adaptable and adjust to anything that's kind of gets in your way. But basically, we're going to do it as a team. I have 2 great assistant coaches, Julian Blythe and Aaron Bosgang, and between them, the support of the administration and the team, I'm pretty sure that we can conquer anything.
Of course, with your professional experience and your Paralympian experience, have you been able to take that over to the college level and coaching these young rowers to one day make it to the national level?
Well, I think between the experience I gained from being a novice rower in high school, kind of coming into my own in college, and then really excelling and training with the best of the best on the national team, between the training that has taken me through and then the different coaches that I've had throughout the years, it's really helped me to understand all aspects of rowing. I have walk-ons that are coming onto the team that have no experience. That's when, I put my novice hat on. I have these athletes that come in that, have a background. They were recruited to come. I can share experiences with them from my times at Sacred Heart. And then those kids that are really willing to push the envelope and want to take that next step and be really the best that they can be while making sacrifices, I can take my experience from the national team and help them out. But all in all, I think that, all the coaching that I received and even training helps me be a better coach. I like to say that I'm not going to put any of my athletes through a workout that I've never done or I couldn't get through. So, some are better than others, but, if I can get through, something throwing up or not throwing up, I believe that my athletes can also.
What does a typical game day look like for rowing at LIU?
So kids will wake up in the morning, have a good breakfast. We'll depart for the regatta, whether we're leaving from a hotel or campus. We'll get to the regatta and we'll rig the boats. So the boats travel on a trailer. So you got to take them apart. So when we get there, we got to put them back together. They'll get a little bit of a motivational talk. They'll start to warm up on land. They'll go for a run, do some dynamic stretching. They'll hit the water, hopefully throw down a great race and a good time. come back. They usually get a few minutes to rehydrate, refuel, and then take the boats apart. Usually a team speech, end of day, kind of what we're expecting, what we got, what we're gonna improve on, and then we hit the bus. Typically, our feast after racing has been Chipotle lately. So they usually get some Chipotle on the way home, and then they're back on campus and can either crash or go and celebrate.
Of course, who are some of the teams that you face each week in your conference?
So in our conference, we have Stetson and Jacksonville down in Florida, Drake College, which is in Iowa, Robert Morris, which is in Pennsylvania, Sacred Heart and Fairfield in Connecticut. And then the remainder of the conference is 5 teams in New York. We have Marist, Manhattan, Iona, Canisius, and LIU. So those are the teams that make up the conference. So that's who we do predominantly race against, but we also do race against other teams outside of our conference.
Of course, as a coach, what is it like going back to Sacred Hearts and coaching against your alma mater?
It's interesting. So a lot of coaches, I'm sure, leave and they want to be better than the team that they were coming from. I don't quite have that feeling yet because a lot of the kids that are still growing at Sacred Heart, I recruited. So there's nothing more than I want for them to succeed. So, it's nice to see them. It's nice to see the parents. But it's been, it's weird. You're seeing them and, the day-to-day that they're doing was something that you really used to be involved in and be a part of. But for me, it's really nice to see the girls and to see them perform well on the water.
Of course, what does a typical away rowing tournament look like?
So usually, pretty much the away races are usually further away. So we'll usually leave the day before the race, get to the hotel. Kids can, drop their stuff off. If there's an opportunity to practice on the course before, we'll do that. Usually a nice team dinner. We'll have team meetings after dinner back at the hotel. Kids get to sleep usually between 9 and 10. They'll get to sleep. And then the next day will be kind of how I explained before, just a typical race day.
How's that like also getting to compete against some of those non-conference teams and those powerhouse teams?
It's nice. It gives us, a good measurement of where we're at, not just in our conference, but, if we were in another conference, how would we stack up against these other teams? Kind of just, is more of a measurement and gives you more data of where you are and where you could be.
Of course, during rowing meets, do you get to meet some of those other teams like, let's say, the Virginia Cavaliers?
So we haven't raced UVA. They're down south, so we really haven't gone up against them. But some of the bigger races, like Head of the Charles, Head of the Hooch, San Diego Crew Classic, when you get to those, you are in the same competition with them.
What does a typical recruitment process look like on the rowing side?
So biggest thing is we first receive notification that a recruit has filled out our questionnaire. So we'll receive their data, the data that they submitted, whether they included erg scores, results from races, their height and weight, some accomplishments that they've had throughout their high school years. And from there, we'll move on. We'll reach out to them if they fit the mold for what we're looking for. We'll reach out, have a phone call. Then they'll typically come to campus for a visit on their own behalf. And then after that, if they like what they see, if they fit the mold of what we're looking for, if we fit the mold for what they're looking for, we would then invite them for an official visit. And they'd come see the school after the official visit. If, we're one of their top schools, we'll make an offer to them. And then from there, it's really balls in their court. They decide, what college they want to make their next home away from home for the next 4 years.
What does a typical official visit look like on rowing for LIU?
So what recruits can expect is that they'd come, hang out with the team. Biggest part is really getting to know who their future teammates could be. Go to a team dinner, and then the other big parts are attending a practice, seeing how us coaches run a practice, seeing how the athletes go about, preparing for a practice, what they do in a practice. They'll then attend a class with one of our student athletes so that they get to see what, being an LIU Shark really is about and the academics. Then they'll also, go to lunch, breakfast. They'll go to strength and conditioning with the team, see what a typical lift practice is like. And they'll also go on a tour and then meet with the coaches.
Of course, as a head coach, what are some of the things that you look at in those prospective student athletes while on the road?
So the big things that I'm looking for are, if I were to call a prospective student athletes coach, what is he or she going to say about them? I can look at results, I can look at erg scores, I can look at, their transcript, but I want to know what, a coach is going to say about an athlete. Are they someone who is well-rounded? Are they getting involved, on the team, but also, in the community? Are they excelling not only on the water, but also in the classroom? Are they a leader on the team? Are they making the team's best boats? Are they the first one to offer help when a younger kid needs it? So I'm more so looking at the big picture than you got to hit this checkbox and that checkbox.
Can you talk about, of course, the culture that you've built for LIU?
Can you repeat that? Sorry.
Can you talk about the culture that you've built for LIU?
A culture, yeah. So honestly, there's a culture that us coaches can create, but then I think the bigger one is kind of the culture that the athletes take on. And us coaches like to kind of follow their lead. In an ideal world, what I like is, very inclusive, supportive dynamic, which is huge in rowing because we are a team-oriented sport. It's not like, your typical basketball, soccer, where you can have one superstar that really carries the team. On a rowing team, you're only as strong as your weakest rower. You're in a boat, you can have a really strong rower. They're not going to get you, to that finish line without the support of everyone, else in the boat. So it's very important that, everyone is supportive of each other. Everyone's pushing each other. It can be very competitive when you get on the ergs, who's pulling, better than who else. But it's very important that we all cheer each other on, supportive, push each other, and, just be there for each other. And that's exactly what I've seen thus far, and it's been great to see. Even those kids that I was talking about that had no rowing experience before, without me even having to say stuff, they, obviously you have your stronger kids and your slower kids. They're always there cheering each other on, helping each other out, hanging out with each other outside of practice, and that's all I can ask for as a coach.
As a head coach, what are some of your biggest accomplishments so far?
So the kids have really exceeded all of my wildest expectations. I was, expecting, our first season this past fall, just getting a season under our belts, going to a few races, getting these kids some race experience, because at the time, a majority of the team was just walk-ons. Well, first race we go to, the kids, they're out on the water and I'm watching the results come up on my phone, and first place, LIU. This can't be right. We're just showing up. I'm looking for these kids to just hang with the pack. They ended up getting, the girls ended up getting first place at our first race. The boys got second. And then at our second race, they both came in first, which was awesome. And then our last race was a very competitive race, and they were like middle of the pack. So far they are exceeding my wildest of expectations. I just got back their grades. The team did phenomenal in the classroom. I never have to ask these kids twice about getting community service done. So honestly, big picture, this is what I'm looking for. My biggest accomplishments as a coach are making sure that they graduate, and that as a whole, we are kind of growing as individuals. And so far, that's exactly what I've seen. These kids are pushing themselves and really, getting involved and being the best that they can be. And that's what I'm looking for.
Of course, as a head coach, what is it like obviously seeing those freshmen put on the uniform for the first time versus putting it on for the last time?
So far, just because it's been our first season, I haven't had a kid put on their uniform for the last time yet, but I can talk about experience at Sacred Heart with that being, it's awesome to see these kids come in, and then 4 years down the road, they're a completely different person. They've really grown. They've really come into themselves, and it's very hard to watch them put their uniform on for the last time. It's something that, as time goes on, I thought I was going to get better with, but I haven't. So I'm expecting that that's probably going to be the same deal at LIU.
What are some of your future plans for the LIU rowing program?
Can you say that again? Sorry.
What are some of your future plans for the LIU rowing program?
Future plans, obviously to grow the program. We want to make it as competitive as possible. So it's already off to that start. So right now we're having, new boats come in, new ergs. We have our own erg room, which is awesome. That's really coming into its own. But basically just continuing to grow the team in roster number and competitiveness.
What advice would you give those future college rowers that are looking to compete on the college level?
I would say first, definitely get involved on your team. Make sure that you're going to practice every day and being coachable. That you're pushing yourself, but you're also taking critiques and you're trying to better yourself with them. All right. A coach can constantly be telling you, fix this, fix that. If you don't do anything with it, you're not going to improve yourself. They're not saying it to be mean. They're not saying it to, get on you. They're saying it to improve you. So take those, critiques, use them, be coachable. And then as you further along that, if rowing is really something that you want to do in college, kind of think about, reflect what, you're looking for in a college. Are you looking for a small school, big school, East Coast, West Coast, down South? And once you kind of narrow that down, email coaches, introduce yourself, send them a resume, be on their radar, fill out their questionnaire, and then just, if they talk to you, you talk to them. Just remember to stay on their radar. Make sure that you don't, fall between the gaps. Make sure that you're constantly, the name that they remember. Be talkative, be respectful, and basically just kind of take it from there. I mean, definitely a big suggestion is reaching out to schools that fit what you're looking for, but maybe not the school that you've heard of. Everyone grows up hearing of these bigger schools, UNC, Texas, Florida, Virginia Tech. Well, what about these smaller schools that you might not have heard of, but it just came up in your college search? You might not know much about them, and that might be, because they're a great fit for you and you don't want to have that be passed up. So reach out to the coaches, hear everyone out. And at the end of the day, you're going to go and you're going to follow your gut and your heart, because, when you're happy out of school, that's when you're going to succeed the most.
What advice would you give those college players that are looking to go professionally and compete nationally?
I would say definitely sit down and have a conversation with yourself, because you're going to have to make a lot of sacrifices. You're going to have to give up a lot of, nights going out with your friends, summers, back at home working. So you're definitely going to need to make a lot of sacrifices. But if you're willing to do that, I'd say find a good club program, push the limits, make sure that you're really training, 2 to 3 times a day, making sure that you're taking care of your body and recovering in between, and go for it.
What advice would you give those college athletes that are looking to go to the Olympics or Paralympics to represent Team USA, Canada, or even Mexico?
I would say the same thing. If Paralympics, Olympics, they fall in line with the national team. So if you can do those things with sacrifice and making those time commitments and pushing yourself, world championships come first. Olympics and Paralympics are the goal after that.
What advice would you give people such as yourself that were Paralympians and getting into college coaching?
For me, it was a very smooth transition. For others, I would say, look into either getting a graduate assistant position, which is going for your master's degree in something, try and get your foot in the door. Others might just have to take a volunteer opportunity. Start there and kind of see if you like it, and just start, going for ride-alongs with other coaches, seeing different coaching styles, coaching club teams, and kind of just see where you're at.
What advice would you give those future head coaches that are looking to get started in building their own program?
Be patient. Some things take a lot of time, but if you have the support of a good administration, the sky's the limit. So be patient, but also have an open mind and be willing to do things, a little different from what you might see as the right way to go.
That's great advice. Where can our listeners find you at on social media along with the LIU Sharks rowing program at?
They can find me on Instagram at Jaclyn, Jaclyn Smith, Jaclyn R. Smith, SMITH_. And the Sharks they can find on Instagram at LIU Rowing.
Thank you again, Coach Jaclyn Smith, for your interview, and best of luck in your future as the head women's rowing program coach at LIU Sharks.
Thanks for having me, Brandon. Happy New Year.
Thank you. You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Facebook at Brandon Sports Talk, Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brandon, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Coach Jaclyn Smith, for your interview, and best of luck in your future.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.